Hello again, Econ 201 students. Good to see you all again, or imagine that I do. So this week you're going to be taking a look at a couple of different subjects, and one of them is an extremely important and interesting one called elasticity. Now elasticity, as you'll see in Chapter 6, is just a measurement of responsiveness to changes in the economy. Okay, so something changes in our economic system. Elasticity measures how much different parts of the economy react to that. And the main measurement of elasticity that we'll look at in here is consumer price elasticity, or what we sometimes call price elasticity of demand. And elasticity of demand just says, suppose the price of something you buy goes up or down, how much do you, the consumer, change your buying in response to that? Right? So how responsive are consumers to changes in prices? And real companies will hire economists and accountants to try to figure out these numbers for them. So this is clearly based on something real. So how do we calculate price elasticity of demand? Well, it looks intimidating, and of course there's math involved, but it's not that bad. Right? It's a pretty simple operation. It just takes some practice, and you'll have some practice opportunities in this week's homework. Okay? So usually all you need to find price elasticity in some market is a pair of quantities and prices. So at a certain price, consumers buy X amount of a product. At a different price, they buy this different amount of that product. Using those two numbers for price and the quantity demanded at that price, using those numbers we can find price elasticity of demand. So how does it work? Okay, well, you'll see the formula in your book, and here's a simplified maybe version of it. Okay, we've got price elasticity of demand up here, okay, represented by E subscript D. That's not ed. Okay, that's price elasticity of demand. Okay, so how flexible are consumers to price changes? Do they show a lot of flexibility when the price goes up? So a price increase is met by consumers walking away because they feel they have alternatives. They can show flexible behavior or elastic behavior. Okay? Or alternatively, if the price goes up, you consumers just have to get used to it because there are no substitutes for the product. Okay? It depends on the product. So to measure that, we use this elasticity of demand value. And what it's composed of is a given change in the quantity demanded as a result of a given change in price. And we'll measure those with percentages, okay, using a method that we'll show you right now. Okay, so it's the percent change in the quantity demanded divided by the percent change in the price. And here we're using the triangles there. That's the Greek letter delta, and it just indicates a change in some variable. Alright, so the percent change in quantity demanded divided by a percent change in price that caused it. Okay, so how do we get these percent changes? Okay, well, it's not too tough to figure out. So let's look at one at a time here. We'll zoom in a little using technology. So the method that we'll be using in this class and that is used in Krugman's textbook in Chapter 6 is called the midpoint method. But it's, it's struggling. But it's pretty easy to deal with. Okay, it just looks intimidating. So here's how you'd use the midpoint method. Okay, to calculate the percent changes in these two variables, you take the change in them from one level to another and divide by their average. Okay, so change divided by the average, and you'll multiply that quotient by 100% because we want a percent, right? Okay, and we do that for quantity and price. So it's the difference in the quantities demanded divided by their average converted to a percent divided by the change in prices divided by its average multiplied by 100%. Alright? So it's a number of steps basically to compute, but none of them are too tough, right? Multiplication and division, converting from decimals to percentages, that's basically all the technique that's in here. So let's go ahead and try out an example problem here. Okay. So here's a fairly typical one that you might encounter as far as a price elasticity of demand calculation. So often what you'll be given for a problem will be two quantities and two prices. Right? So we can imagine some product here. We don't know what it is. Could be anything, maybe it's a record album or something. Anything. But the price originally is 20 bucks. Okay, 20 bucks each. And then we could see we go to a price P2 of 24 bucks each. All right? So we've gone from 20 to 24 bucks. So we've had a $4 price increase here. Right? And of course, like you'd expect, we've got a corresponding decrease in demand accompanying that. So we've got quantity 1 here. Originally, 10 units are being consumed when the price is 20 bucks. When the price goes up to 24 bucks, we find the quantity drops down to 9 units sold. Okay? So we've got a before and after price and quantity, and that's all you need to do an elasticity calculation. Okay? So we're going to take the difference between these values, divide by their average, convert to percentages, and we'll do that for quantity and price, and then just divide the two, and we'll get our elasticity value. Okay? So let's start off with quantity up here. So we said we'll take the difference between those two variables, between the two quantity values, and then we'll divide by their average. All right? Well, we're working with quantity first. It's quantity in the numerator, price in the denominator for finding our elasticity value. Okay? So we start off with the difference between them. That's what's going to go at the top of our quotient for quantity. The difference between those two values. Okay? Well, the difference is just the absolute value of one subtracted from the other. And because we use absolute value, it doesn't matter much which one we subtract. So this could be 10 for the first quantity minus 9, which will give us 1. Or the absolute value of 9 minus 10, which would be negative 1, still 1. Okay? So the difference between those two quantity values is 1. Put that in the numerator there. Okay. And we're going to divide that 1 by the average of our two quantity values. Okay, the average here, average is pretty easy, right? The average will be of 10 and 9, so it'll be 10 plus 9, 19, divide by 2, okay, should get 9.5. Okay, that's the average for the quantity that'll go here in the denominator. So 1 divided by 9.5, and then of course we'll multiply that by 100%. And now we'll do the same thing, the exact same thing for price. And here I've already put the price values on here. So we start with the difference between our two different prices. Okay. $20 and $24. Okay. I've miswritten that there. It should be 4. Okay. That's the difference between them. 4. Okay. And then we'll divide that value of 4 by the average between the two. Okay. So it'll be 4 divided by 22. Okay, which will give us some value, and then multiply that by 100 as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and put those values down here. Okay, 1 divided by 9.5 gives us, let's see, value of 0.105, so that'll be 10.5%. 10.5%, just dividing 1 by 9.5. And the numerator will have 4 divided by 22, which gives us 0.18. Actually 0.181818, but usually 2 significant digits is plenty. Very good. So 0.1818, convert to a percent, of course that'll be 18%. Okay. Alright, there we go. So now we've reduced this down to 10.5% divided by 18% will give us our elasticity value, and then we can explain what that value is telling you and why you would care. Okay? But just a matter of taking your calculator out, and again, you'll use a fair amount of number crunching muscle in Chapter 6. So using a calculator is totally acceptable, as I'm doing now. So that'll be 10.5 divided by 18. Okay. And those are percentage to percents. So what that means is we're going to get a unitless elasticity value here. Okay. It will just be a number. Okay. And 10.5 divided by 18, my calculator tells me, is a value of, let's see, Good. 0.58. Okay? 0.58. And that's it. Not $0.58 or 0.58%, just 0.58. Okay. Now, that's how you do the calculation. Okay, some simple steps: subtraction, division, multiplication with percentages. Pretty simple steps, right? It's just a question of doing them all properly and keeping track of your work. Now, what's the significance of this elasticity value? Well, you read about this quite a bit in your Krugman book, but the short version is elasticity tells you how responsive consumers are to changes in price. The big division between flexible and inflexible is at 1. Okay, if you get a price elasticity of demand value higher than 1, it means you've got a larger proportionate change in quantity relative to price. In other words, a 10% price increase makes you lose maybe 12% of your customers. A sort of a disproportionate consumer reaction to price changes there. And typically, that reflects consumers feeling that they have an alternative, a reasonably good substitute for your product. Right? On the other hand, if your price elasticity of demand is less than 1.0, okay, that means you've got a proportionally greater change in price than quantity. In this example here, we had a 18% price hop, okay, but only a 10% and change decrease in demand, using our midpoint method here, telling us that we had relatively little decrease in demand for a given amount of price increase. And that'll give us a value less than 1. And what that's telling you is consumers don't feel that they have any decently or reasonably close alternatives for your product. Okay? So that price elasticity of demand, less than 1. And our verdict then is that this product or this marketplace is displaying inelastic demand. Okay? So consumers don't consider themselves to have reasonably close substitutes for your product, and you have some flexibility in terms of a price increase. Okay? If your elasticity value is greater than 1, and consumers show elastic behavior, you're liable to increase your revenue by cutting prices instead, because flexible consumers may come to your product in greater numbers, and that may allow you to make up the price difference on volume. And you'll read a lot more detail on this in Chapter 6. This is just to give you a relatively easy sample problem to talk you through. All right? So hopefully this is helpful, and we can talk about it on the discussion boards. See ya.